is up, Ada Nation? Welcome to Dap Central. My name is Fareed, and this is going to be the second live stream of the day as a part of this awesome weekend. Now, the first stream, I had Chris O joining me on for that stream, really made it super fun and simple. Today, I'm going to be joined by two other members that have been on this channel before. First and foremost is going to be fellow content creator Josh from a late Game Crypto. What is up, Josh? Good
What's up,
morning. How
Fareed?
are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm excited to get this thing going.
Likewise, likewise. Now, before we get rolling, we've got another person joining us here today. I think he's going to be a regular, and that's going to be Trim Brusette. Trim,
Hey
welcome
guys,
aboard. How are you,
thank
man?
you. It's I'm very good, thank you. I'm very happy to be back. We did one of these streams a little while back. It was great fun. Yeah, looking forward to this one as well.
Likewise, likewise. I want to say thank you to the both of you for sparing me some time here on the weekend. And let's just go ahead and just jump right on in. So, as a part of today's stream, we're going to do a brief review of the weekly Cardano development report. After that, we're going to jump into some of the top gainers and losers this particular week and potentially dive as to why they are where they are. And then after that, we're going to jump into the biggest topic for today's stream, which I think everybody's been chatting about. That's going to be Project Catalyst. So, we're going to talk about projects that have been funded. We'll talk about some of the projects that did not get funding. And then I also want to talk about what we can do to improve Project Catalyst, as well as what we did better in funding round number 10, as opposed to funding round number 9 and all the prior funding rounds. I think that's one area that a lot of people kind of skip out on is, touching on what was improved. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are not too excited about the results, but I always like to at least take a look at that silver lining and see, because it's a process. So anywho, once we jump into that, we're going to jump into some community events. We'll talk about the Discover Cardano team that was just at the recent Dubai Expo. And then we have the agenda as well as the speakers that have officially been announced for the Cardano Summit taking place in Dubai as well. Now, if we have time after that, there's going to be a pretty big content creator that you guys have probably heard of. That's going to be Big Boy Crypto, who has kind of been in a tough spot as of like the last month. And what's crazy is that he was actually attending, or he did attend the Rare Evil conference. And so I got to, see him. I didn't get to chat with him, but he was there. And then following that, there was some pretty big announcements that came out about him and his BitBoy network. If we have time after that, we're going to jump into some project updates where we'll be talking about some upcoming or some recent token launches, as well as some upcoming ones with, I believe, the JPEG token actually being the latest listing that should be released on the 25th. So quite a lineup. Josh, Trim, are you guys ready to dive in?
Yep,
Let's
let's
do it.
do it.
All right.
By the way, I can't hear Josh. I'm not sure if that's just me.
I can hear
Sounds like-
Josh.
Okay. Weird.
Trim?
I can hear you. Yeah,
Mhm.
sorry. Let's dive right
roll
into
with
it.
So Josh, are you able to hear Trim? Let me ask
I
that.
can hear Trim fine, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
It
So
might be on my end. Let me just refresh. You go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll join in a second.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So first things first, let's jump into the weekly development report. So as it stands right now, 144 projects launched, 1,285 builders, and we are literally on the cusp of the 10,000 Plutus scripts. On the left-hand side there, the Ledger team remains focused on the Conway era. We've got some ongoing Lace feature developments. And if you guys missed it last week, we did touch on the multi-delegation feature, which allows a single account or a single wallet to delegate to more than one stake pool. Now, with respect to Plutus, they're working on their Plutus Macroni indexers. And then when it comes to Mithril, they're working on some infrastructure updates for that. Now, they did also mention the ability to become a delegate representative or DREP. And this is going to be important when it comes to SIP number 1694 and the rollout of governance as well. If you guys also missed my latest video surrounding the Intersect MBO, check that out as well. That talks about how you can contribute to the launch of governance in the Cardano community. Now, one of the biggest pieces here is going to be Catalyst funding round number 10, which we saw the voting results released on the 21st of September. So we're going to jump into that in just a couple of minutes. And then last but not least, we've got a Cardano event, which is going to be led by Dr. Lars Brunez, who's going to be the head of the education when it comes to IOG, which will be taking place at the University of Malta. Josh, does anything here stick out to you with respect to this particular week's update?
There's so much stuff, but there's nothing in particular that sticks out to me. I'm interested with like all of the activity that is happening. Every time I hear one of these reports, it's surprising to me to learn how much stuff is happening and like what's happening in different areas and how many different developers have their hands in like different parts of things. It's really interesting to see like how much is happening despite not being fully aware of everything. It's there's a lot going on that just your average Cardano community member isn't really gonna know.
Yeah. One of the things that I don't see listed here, which on my last live stream with Chris, we are talking about layer 2 and scaling solutions, was going to be some updates surrounding the development of Midnight. And so I know that they've announced a DevNet, but they didn't announce an actual date on which we can expect that to come online. But that is something that I'm definitely keeping an eye out on. Trim, welcome back. Sounds like your audio is fixed. You good on your end?
Yes. Yeah. It's all fine now. I had the same problem the day of the Catalyst announcement as well. I jumped in a live stream with the Drip Drops guys, and I had the same issue for some reason. It was connecting to my VR headset, even though the VR headset isn't connected.
Gotcha.
But
Well, I'm glad we
it's all
figured
good
it
now.
out. Good. I'm happy to hear. All right. I'm not sure if you have any comments here on this particular week's update when it comes to Cardano development. If not, we'll move into the top gainers and losers for this week.
Yeah, no, I think it's great to see. It's a depth of a bear market. People are still building. People are still using the chain. It's a lot of activity. I think it's a sign of a solid ecosystem. That we're all here. We're all still chugging along, even though we're all waiting for the the up times to come back. But
That's right.
we're here for the long run.
That's right. Shout out to all the builders and just everybody continuing to push the space forward. We've got Eric tuning in today. What is up for Read, my guy? What's up, Josh? Salute to the Knights. Eric, happy to see you here. We've got Didi, who was actually just on my last live stream. So, Didi, thank you for showing up to both live streams. Definitely appreciate it. We've got Kim as well tuning in. Good morning. Ada's daddy. Sup, homies? What is up? Interesting name there. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the next piece as a part of today's video. We're going to jump into the top gainers and the top losers as a part of the last 30 days. So coming in at number 1 is going to be Raker Coin. Again, this is based off of the last 30 days. We've got K Energy Work, which is actually pretty interesting there. Not a lot of liquidity for the top 3 there, but the Working Dead recently released their Learn to Earn platform, which allows for instructors to come on there and launch their own courses. And then community members can basically pay for those courses or unlock those courses using the Work token. So they're up 260%. But again, keep in mind, and this is something that Paul raised on my last live stream with him, was that the liquidity is very, very shallow. So not a lot of volume required to get a pretty big upswing with the actual prices of these tokens. So keep that in mind. We have Hash coming in at number 4. We've got the Derp Birds token, which is an NFT project. We've got ADAX as well, which is a project which we touched on not too long ago, which I personally believed has basically left the space. We've got Pepe Blue, World Mobile. This is a pretty big one here and tons of volume, right? So that looks like, if I'm not mistaken, 9.5 million ADA coming in specifically for World Mobile. Now, I'm not sure if you guys have caught wind of the latest news, but they seem to be teasing the launch of an aerostat. So I think this is directly tied to that particular tease. Josh or Trim, any thoughts? Are you guys keeping up with World Mobile? This has been one that has been, I think, gaining a lot of traction in like the past month alone.
Yeah, World Mobile is one of those ones that I'm starting to get more plugged in, pay more attention to. There's so much that I didn't realize how well positioned they are. World Mobile has one of the strongest communities that I've ever seen, one of the most like committed communities, And that's one of the big things that really drives forward a community driven decentralized network where people are able to own partial ownership of the network. So yeah, I'm paying a lot more attention to it. I'm getting plugged in with what's happening and trying to do more to serve the world mobile community, and it all just looks incredibly promising. I'm incredibly stoked about what's happening with world mobile.
Yeah, yeah. I got the chance to meet them at Rare Revo as well, and see the. You saw that as well, Farid. The car that they had out back with the Starlink connection and the Earth node there. People were able to connect to the mobile or to the Wi-Fi from that car in the area. It was really cool to see. You can have this van, this little setup. You connect to the power, and you have essentially a mobile node that people can use for telecom. And what I really like about World Mobile is the power of decentralization is biggest when you're targeting industries that are monopolized. And telecom industry is one of the most monopolized industries across the world, right? So it's great to see this push towards decentralization in those areas. So yeah, it's really exciting to see. They're rolling out stuff, the nodes. You see the hardware, you see the actions. You can connect to the networks, and yeah, it's I can see why this is improving over the last 30 days.
Yeah, if I jump back over, let me actually pull it back up there. WMT scan. If we take a look at some of the stats there, they continue to rise. So they now have a total of 438 air nodes. I mentioned this in one of my prior videos. We kicked off the year with 225. So they've almost doubled their amount, and we still have another 2 months to go in this year. So I think we could be very well over 500 air nodes by the end of the year. In terms of data consumption, now at 1.61 terabytes with over 13,000 unique users connecting to these air nodes in the last 24 hours alone. The biggest and probably the most important piece for me here is going to be the network uptime, which, as you guys can see there, has now been up consecutively for 506 days. So a huge shout out to the World Mobile team. Again, we've got some of the air node revenue down here, and we can see that some of them are bringing in anywhere between $78, and I believe this is per month. So really interesting to get all this transparency and all this information as they also begin to roll out in the United States. One other thing to note, again, they've been teasing quite a bit here. We've got Gregory Gottlieb, who's going to be the head of the Aerostat and some of the platforms that they use to launch some of these key pieces of infrastructure for the World Mobile Project. And they also released this particular article here as well, touching on how the World Mobile Network will be perfectly fit to jump into Angola. So they've been teasing out quite a bit. We don't know exactly where they're going to be launching next, but somewhere within, I believe personally, Africa could be what's up next for World Mobile. Any closing thoughts here before we move along with the top gainers and losers?
I love the blimps, man. I love the blimps.
Aerostat. Mickey will get you. Aerostat. You got to be technical with it. All right.
This project definitely has a future. I would not sleep on this one. I think that it's one to at least pay attention to, because that they're already doing things,
For
Well
sure.
said.
And they have been doing for a very long time. One of the earliest big projects in the space, and they've been building consistently, and now they're really delivering on what they promised. So it's so happy to see this.
Well said. Well said. All right. Right behind World Mobile, we've got Yumi from, I believe, the Yumi Universe NFT collection. We've got the Venom token. And then interestingly, we've got IBTC. So I believe the biggest two tokens there, World Mobile and IBTC. Let's quickly move into the top losers here. And we'll take a look at this based on the last 30 days. I'll skip some of these ones here. Again, I believe they're just mainly meme coins. One that does have a little bit of a reputation to its name is going to be Wi-Fi. So they do appear to be down on the last 30 days, about 42%, with quite a little bit of trading volume. We've also got the Ncoins token, a data privacy solution, and I recently sat down with Vlad in order to touch on their mainnet launch. So if you guys want to find out more about them, make sure to go ahead and check out that particular video. Another surprise here is going to be the Indigo protocol. I believe they're the second largest in terms of TVL. So to see them down 34% in the last 30 days is a surprise for me. And then we've got Noom as well, which had a pretty big announcement surrounding their Noom Studio, which I do have an interview which is being reviewed by them right now. So you guys stay tuned for that. But Ryan Jones talks about the development of their Noom Studio, their flagship product, as well as the development and updates coming into their record store. Scrolling down, and probably the last one that we'll touch on here is going to be Iagon, which again, I am pretty surprised. Now, granted, this token, I believe, did like a 30x or something like that in the matter of like a month. Now, that was
Yeah.
about 5 or 6 months ago. And that particular price point was sustained for a really long time. So I guess it's kind of fair to see it kind of trickling back down a little bit now. But I think that's going to do it there for the top losers. Anything that you guys want to add with Fi-Fi, Endcoins, Indie, or Iagon?
I think just generally, like if projects are red, I know people are like, they tend to get in this like kind of pessimistic attitude of it, like, oh no, it's in trouble. I tend to get excited when it's red, especially if it's a project that is doing something, that has a product that is actively continuing to move forward, and they have pretty exciting things up in the pipeline. If it's red, not a bad thing at the moment. It's a good
Yeah.
opportunity.
I think, bear markets, one of the best things you can do is accumulate in projects that you believe in and that are solid. And especially for, Iagon, I have some affiliation with Iagon. I help them, migrate to Cardano. But also with Vi Finance, it's one of the top dexes in my opinion, user wise. They don't have the most liquidity or the most trading volume at the moment, but they have some solid, token buyback mechanics, embedded liquidity pools, lots of really cool tech that they're working on that they already have. So I'm very bullish on Wi-Fi, and seeing this dip, it's a great time to accumulate for me. Not financial advice, obviously. Do your own research, but I wouldn't be discouraged by these trends. As you said, Iagon did a really big pump. Seeing this kind of consolidation is to be expected, I think. And yeah, the fact that they're keeping prices, we're not seeing three digits. We're not seeing 90% drops. We're not seeing these huge absolute crashes. So a little bit down in the bear market is completely reasonable, I think.
I agree with you there. And I think Hank agrees with you as well. 6 years and hodling so far. Shout out to you for having diamond hands there, Hank. Thank you for tuning in. All right. We're going to move into, I believe, the main piece here for today's live stream, which is going to be surrounding Project Catalyst. For anybody who's not aware, this is a way for Cardano community members and for Cardano projects to get funded using set amounts put aside in the Cardano treasury. And this latest funding round was arguably the biggest, where we saw 50 million ADA dispersed to over, I believe, 1,400 proposals now. Not everybody within the 1,400 proposals were funded. I believe 192, or just 13% of all the proposals submitted, actually ended up getting funding. But this stirred up a lot of drama. Number one, congratulations to everybody who won. This was definitely, I believe, in my eyes, the stiffest competition that there was. One of the biggest contributors, I think, was because of the fact that we didn't have Catalyst for like almost a year. Funding round number 9, I remember Josh making content about that, was literally a year ago. And so hopefully we begin to see Catalyst coming back in more of a regular fashion, right? With funding round number 11 following very soon. Now, aside from the winners, there was obviously the majority of people that did not get funded. And that really left a lot of people, I don't want to say bitter, but in a mood where they weren't necessarily receptive of what Project Catalyst has done so far. So I want to turn it over to, I'll let Josh go first. What are your thoughts surrounding this latest funding round? You have a ton of content surrounding Catalyst. You've worked as a proposee and you have worked as a proposal assessor. So you've seen both sides of the ball. What went right in your eyes with this particular round, and what do you think could have been done better? And I think what could have been done better will be the main focus of today's conversation.
Well, it might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm actually glad that things went down the way that it did this round for Project Catalyst. Everybody seems to be taken on this perspective that Catalyst right now is broken, and I prefer to take the approach that Project Catalyst isn't being done built yet. It's in a very experimental phase, and we need to discover these different kinks and stuff. We need to discover the dayless turbos, and we need to discover the different ways that voting might be manipulated. Like, these are the things that it like takes to get from point A to finish, I guess you could say. So I'm glad that things went down the way that they did. I think that people had bad expectations going into it about like, oh, it's the biggest funding round ever, but really, like, it was the first round that was denominated in ADA for starters, and it was 50 million ADA that was dispersed this round. But if you look at the dollar cost of Fund 9 at today's prices in ADA would have dispersed something in the ballpark of 51 million ADA. So we're seeing a lot more proposals getting submitted, but about the same amount of funding that was dispersed for Fund 10. So it should have been pretty expected, I think, that like not a lot of proposals were going to get approved. So I think like the way that it went down was kind of to be expected, whether or not the whole mass downvoting thing was a thing or not. Now, I think that what happened in Fund 10 presents a lot of opportunities to see some changes in some different areas, and like that's the kind of thing that we need to be voicing our opinions about. I think that right now a lot of people are acting a little bit emotionally because their proposal didn't get funded, therefore the whole system is broken and it just doesn't work. And no, like, things did go wrong, and the system needs to be built up from the ground up, and I have plenty of ideas about things that we can change, but it doesn't need to be like a whole restructure the system and throw out the baby with the bathwater type of situation. I think that smaller progressive steps is a good way to build something right and to work out all of the kinks, and not just buy into the idea that the whole thing is broken and flawed from its very core. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Trim?
Yeah, very good thoughts. I agree with you 100% that I don't think the system is broken in any way. I do think there are absolutely areas where we should improve, but it is fundamentally a really, really good mechanism to help the ecosystem sort of self-fund its own growth. It's fantastic in my view. I do think that there were a couple of notes in this round in particular. Some sort of technical, some non-technical. On the technical side, the unlimited downvote power for each individual user changes the game theory of it. It changes the dynamic that is, if you're a rational actor, you should do this, even though it's not necessarily the kind of response that you're trying to get, right? So with a downvote mechanism, ideally, you would want people to downvote scammy projects or projects that are not taking it seriously or not addressing the challenge at hand or not being within the spirit of the whole thing. That's what in my opinion a downvote mechanism should capture. But it's I do think there's a little bit of work to be done there to iron out the kinks. There's also the sort of something that I think we should maybe aim to do for Fund 11 is remind people a little bit about what the purpose of the thing is. Go back to sort of the point of the whole system, because I saw some proposals. I'm not going to single out any one proposer or any one proposal, but there were a couple of proposals that I think maybe didn't really use the system for what it was intended to. Like, it's being used for purposes that isn't really the ecosystem helping itself grow and gain adoption, and these grassroots things that Catalyst, in my opinion, this is literally just my opinion, should be for fund original thinking, development, research, that kind of thing, that wouldn't make sense to fund other ways. that's what how I'm thinking about it. Like the ideal thing with Catalyst is you're getting basically a grant, right? A deliverable based grant, which means that you can make things without the sort of overhead or sort of forced incentives that you would in a investment model, for example. So, full disclosure, I had a proposal in the running. It didn't get voted through. That's completely fine. I've been working on it for a while. I'm going to keep working on it, through different means. But the scenario that I'm faced with now is, how do I fund this thing? And the reason I did apply for Catalyst, I thought really hard about it. Should I even do this? The reason I did is because it's not really fair to ask any one individual project to fund the thing that I'm asking for funding for. And if you get venture capital or investors involved that expect a return, it's forcing me into design patterns that I don't really want to do, right? So gatekeeping or adding too much fees, or these kinds of things, like not open sourcing the thing, not aiming for a completely permissionless system. And ideally I want to avoid that, right? And same thing with launching a token. Like I don't want to launch another utility token with a kind of forced utility just to raise funds. So for projects or for proposals like that, Catalyst is the ideal place, right? Because you can get the funding without sort of all of these other consequences that you would rather try to avoid. I do think some people may have used it for other things, that aren't really widely beneficial for the whole ecosystem in the same kind of way. They're not aiming to necessarily go, make systems permissionless, do original research. They're not taking this sort of approach to it. It's a money raising mechanism that they're using, for in other ways. So I think for Fund 11, maybe we should try and sort of, yeah, figure out, okay, well, what is the purpose of this thing? Like, everyone has their own thoughts. Maybe my thoughts are wrong, but maybe there should be a bit more of a discussion around that. What is the intended, outcome of this mechanism of Catalyst? That's, some of my thoughts as well, or at least, in preparation for Fund 11 and the development of Catalyst.
Yep. Go back to first principles. I 100% agree.
Yeah, I think there needs to be more emphasis, as you said there, Trim, with stuff that can be leveraged by everybody else following the Catalyst proposal implementation, right? And as you said, I'm not here to single anybody out, but there seems to be a lot of stuff that is specific to a project. And that actually is going to take me into the next thing I want to discuss. So shout out to David, huge supporter here of the channel. He states, in my honest opinion, the biggest issue is that it's not just for ideas and tools to be built, but it's becoming a system that allows the established names within the community to expand with reduced business risks. And that's a really fair point. And so that takes me to the next piece here, which if I just go ahead and pop this up here, I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are. But again, this is something that was posted. And so I haven't had the time to actually go back and verify, that this is accurate, but I'll just take it at face value. So this is posted by CMOS. It states your 63% of the 50 million ADA in funding round number 10 went to 10 different teams. I recognize that a lot of these names have already been quite successful, which I think for me, it's like, if these are projects that are already successful, they should have some sort of revenue mechanisms already implemented, right? Or they should have had some sort of fundraising already done. And so I'm of the mind that, yes, your track record counts, right? We don't want to just fund people that don't have a track record, but we shouldn't only be funding people with a track record. I know that a lot of the proposals are coming in from people that aren't actually on teams. And I'm kind of wondering what your guys' thoughts are about, projects actually getting funded in the same amount or in the same pool that we also have, regular people or regular average Joes, for example. And Trim, no offense to you by any means, right? But like you're a single person, you have a proposal, and now you're up against, fully dedicated projects. It's really hard to plead your case against some of these fully blown teams that are, doing things at a completely different scale than the average person might be, who's putting in a proposal for maybe, 5, 10, 15, 20,000 ADA. when you're going up against a team that is requesting a million ADA, for a whole redo or for a completely different thing, that is on a different scale than what you're providing to the space. So, what are your guys' thoughts surrounding, the dispersion or the distribution of the funds given this particular chart?
So I've seen this chart as well, and I actually heard someone mention a proposal to sort of split, between these established entities and the sort of grassroots sort of categories, and have allocated funds for each sort of each vertical. Something that I think is an important response to this is that I think everyone in the space considers themselves as a startup, as a small team, as a basically everyone feels they're in this position, especially now. The depths of a bear market. Even though you've worked on different things, everyone's worried about budget, about runway, about all of these things. So I do think it's a little bit hard to draw a firm distinction between these things. So I wouldn't necessarily make that technical change to the way that Catalyst is sort of set up. But yeah, I agree. I do think that there's some things need to be done, and it's just important to facilitate a discussion surrounding it, like we're doing now.
Agreed. Now, just as a heads up, Trim, we did lose your visuals. So if you maybe want to drop in and join back in, I'd be more than happy to bring you back up. Josh, any thoughts surrounding the current distribution of the funds as a part of this latest round?
Yeah, I don't have a major problem with the way that things landed this round. I think that a lot of the projects that got funded, they're doing things on a massive, widespread scale that impacts the community on a much wider scope than people give them credit for. Like, people might look at this chart and just say, like, it's one name associated with it, and that's, they just got a ton of money. But it's a little bit more complex than that. So I think that the biggest issue with this round was not necessarily so much in the way that the results ended up, but looking at the voting data. And we had kind of alluded to this, but I realized that we didn't really explain it for anybody that might not be aware. What happened was with the voting is that presumably a large number of whale wallets ended up mass downvoting everything. So like I think 80% of the proposals that got denied had a voting result of negative 100 ADA or more, which is unprecedented compared to any other round that we've seen before. There's pages and pages of proposals that got downvoted, and there's no possible way that the wallets that downvoted all of these proposals by that much read any of them. There are too many proposals to go through. I'm very pessimistic that every single one of these was a situation where they were downvoted based on the merit or the content of what they wrote. I think that they were downvoted without having them read, and because they're not in a particular in-group of proposals that they wanted to be vote for. Now, I think that's the biggest focus of Fund 10 is working on the governance and voting model, and I think that needs to be reworked most of all. I would like to see maybe something done with the downvoting mechanism. Instead of having all of your voting power go into 100% of each downvote that you go, I would like to see it split up a little bit more, so that if you want to downvote one particular proposal, that downvote power is going to be shared with all of the other downvotes that you put in, so that something like this couldn't happen. And bigger whale wallets, they can still downvote on things that they think is bad, but the more that they use that downvote button, the more diluted their downvote power becomes. So it really makes you try to decide what things that you really think are damaging, that you think really shouldn't be put through, whether that be by malicious action or just a bad idea, generally speaking. I'd like to see that, and we could keep basically everything else the same. The upvote power that you have, that can be kept with a similar mechanism. But I think that change right there would completely change a heck of a lot of things. That way, the community has a lot more say. Their voice isn't drowned out so much by people that have all of this massive downvote power, if it is diluted in that way. So that would be one big change that I would suggest making, and I'm definitely going to be pushing that one for the next round.
Yeah, I think that is wonderfully said. I do want to jump into some of the suggestions that I've seen posted online recently. I do see a pretty interesting conversation going on in the chat between Cardano MM and Didi. So Didi had mentioned, some sort of entry exam or some sort of just knowledge test when it comes to voting with Project Catalyst. What are your guys' thoughts when it comes to having some sort of barrier to entry before people can vote? Because as Josh mentioned there just doesn't seem to be a way for everybody to vote for all of those proposals. So it's like, how do we allow for people to vote on certain things? And I guess, how do we just, mitigate people just coming in there and voting on things that they don't necessarily understand? I think education is a key part of it, but there's just no way for everybody to be aware about what is going on with 1,500 different proposals at any given time. So any thoughts surrounding what could potentially be done when it comes to maybe adding some sort of friction, right? I've heard people maybe mention, in order to reduce the number of proposals that actually get submitted, add some sort of fee to the proposal submission process to where, it prevents spam, right? Kind of like with network transaction fees on networks that, sorry, go ahead, Josh, you can go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say that I think I feel the same way about that as I do with barriers to entry in a democratic voting system versus more of a plutocratic voting system like Cardano is currently built. I think that barriers to entry doesn't really help anybody. Whatever ways that you put up barriers to entry to voting, I think is generally not a good thing. I'd like to do something on the other end to reduce the amount of proposals that people have to read through with some kind of elimination round type thing, so that people are not so overwhelmed with the amount of proposals that they would need to read through in order to make a real informed decision. I'd like that a little bit better.
No, I think a big part of that is actually just the user interface. Something as simple as that. Like, how are you exposing these proposals to people? Because if there's an information overload, people are just going to read, maybe read the first couple, and then just be like, oh, whatever. And then maybe there's an absolute solid gold, in proposal number 57. But if it's not presented to anyone, nobody's going to hear about it. You have to do a lot of marketing. You have to do this whole song and dance, which is part of the game to attract votes. You want people to understand your idea and engage with it and everything, which is fine. Like, that's supposed to be a part of it. But I also think that when you're going through this thing, I actually really like the suggestion of having a reason for a downvote. So if you're downvoting, you should give a reason, and then people can maybe challenge that reason. And if that reason is challenged, if it's not a good reason, then maybe to cancel that, or some sort of mechanism like that would be really interesting to see.
For discourse and debate, I love that.
Yeah, and one thing that I also think, I'm not gonna say yes or no necessarily. I have my opinion, but I think at least as an ecosystem, we should have a broader discussion about, should protocols be allowed to vote with the locked ADA. So if you go into a DEX or lending protocol or staking, whatever, like, if you're providing ADA into a protocol like that, should that protocol be able to vote on behalf of using the power of all of the ADA that's in that protocol? I think it's kind of skewing the game, and it's not just that they sort of decide what gets voted on. Like, you can set up a DAO and sort of try and gauge people's opinion on what they want to vote, but you're assuming all of the ADA will be voting, right? You're kind of shifting the statistics there a little bit. Like, imagine if only 10% of that ADA was going to vote anyway. Suddenly, 100% of it is going to vote, and it's going to vote for these proposals that are decided by someone. Is that a fair mechanism? Should we I think it's useful to have a dialogue about that. I'm not sure how impactful it actually is, how often it actually occurs, any of these things, but it's something that's sort of changing the dynamic of the mechanism itself, and sort of what it's not what it's supposed to be, but what it is in practice. So I think a lot of these discussions should be had. I'm not saying we should go one way or the other, but we should at least entertain these ideas and come to some sort of consensus about them.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned from this is that you're not going to get everybody on the same page, but it's always good to hear what the other person is thinking and at least come to some sort of middle ground. And I think that's what's hopefully going to happen with future iterations of Project Catalyst. So I want to just jump into something that I saw, which was a little bit interesting. So we've talked about, different strategies or changes that we could have to downvotes. But what do you guys think about this here, right? Having different ranges where the amount of ADA that you hold puts you in a particular range that then gives you a certain amount of votes. Any initial thoughts when it comes to something like this, as opposed to the 1 ADA per vote, which is how it is implemented right now? I think this kind of groups the voting power a little bit more, right? To where you're not going to have such a big gap between some of the micro wallets and some of the bigger wallets. One of the things that really surprised me was, and I might actually have it pulled up here. Let me see if I've got the tweet pulled up. Yes, this right here. So this was very surprising to see that, you have 8,000 wallets here that make up 6.1 million ADA. And then as you come down here, you have literal wallets that just one of these wallets makes up more than what you have up here, right? So it's pretty interesting for me to see the disparity gap, and that one wallet down here could basically outvote everybody else up here collectively. And obviously there's more people or more wallets here, right? So what are your guys' thoughts surrounding an implementation like this over here with the voting points?
I saw that post, and I think it was Big Pay that had commented on it, and I think it's a fantastic point. Bigger wallets, if they really want to maintain their voting power, will just split up that ADA into different wallets and still be able to overpower people that have smaller amounts of ADA. So I think it basically just puts up an annoyance in place of people being able to take control of the system. I don't think that this actually does anything of substance to really fix the issue.
I completely agree. It's a system like this, although it's a good idea, but it's gameable. That's the problem. It's very easily gainable if this is all we have to work with, right? So if all you have to work with is the wallet address and the balance, and especially if you have a system like this, someone with 1 million ADA in a system like this can either have 5 vote points based on a single wallet, or they can split it up into 2 wallets of 500K and have 8, right? So suddenly you're getting a lot more by splitting up this wallet. And a lot of the big wallets are split up already. I think it was Hosky or something that said that they had 9 different wallets that they had to vote with. So like just the registration alone was a pain. And I do think that's a point that maybe isn't brought up as much during these kinds of discussions. Like, okay, there are big wallets for sure, but there's also whales that are split across multiple wallets that are kind of distributed a little bit in these statistics. So the sort of spreadsheet that you brought up, how many of these 1 to 5 million wallets are actually controlled by a single whale that has 100 million voting power, for example? So it would be really interesting to combine this with something like a proof of personhood or some sort of identity system. I do think that there could be some kind of mix in there, especially when Atala Prism comes into play. ZK, zero knowledge proofs are very good for these kinds of things, where you're supposed to be able to provide identity, able to vote, do these things, and then you should be able to verify the authenticity and verify these results and calculate statistics without knowing the specifics of any of them, right? So I do think that there's a lot of tech that could be put into this to improve the whole system, make some sort of hybrid thing that's more, nuanced than 1/8 of 1 vote.
This is going to roll us into something very interesting. So, Cardano MM, thank you for this particular comment. It's funny you say this because Pete from Learn Cardano actually released a video following the results of Project Catalyst, and he had what he called Catalyst sprints. So he would bring on different people from the community, and they basically did like a round table, like a lightning talk, where everybody would just quickly pitch what it is that they were talking about. Now, unfortunately, everybody that Pete brought onto his channel, none of them actually got any funding, right? And so Pete was actually rethinking, was this actually worth my time? Was this worth my energy? From a content creator standpoint, I think just creating regular Cardano videos is enough. Trying to manage bringing, 20 to 30 people on to talk about Catalyst proposals, recording, editing, all of that takes a lot of time. And then for none of them to actually get funded, I'm sure was pretty disheartening for him to hear, right? So I do think that some of these projects need to get their names out there. How they do that, though, I think is completely up for grabs. Obviously, projects with bigger budgets, that have funds allocated for marketing specifically, they're able to get the word out much more easily. They're able to pay for, sponsored content, etc. And so, again, I think we need a way to level the playing field for individuals who are applying for Catalyst and separate them from actual projects that are also applying for Catalyst, because I think it's like putting, it's putting us regular people in the pit against giants. So that's just my personal thoughts there. I do want to keep the conversation moving along. One of the things that really kind of struck me was some of the projects that did not get funding. And so we're talking about projects, right? And so I want to just highlight some of them that I know are great contributors to the space that did not get any funding. So number one is going to be Iagon, which Trim actually talked a little bit about there before. They had their flexion proposal and they had their stature proposal as well. We have the Ape Society, which proposed a wallet, and they were massively downvoted as well. We have Oracle Charlie 3, which was actually proposing free Oracle data feeds, and that did not make it through. And so that was really eye-opening for me. If they're trying to
That
provide
is
a free
crazy.
service, right, that should, I don't want to say should be an automatic yes, but that should have made it through in my personal eyes. And they've already shown themselves, right, credible with an integration, I believe, with LQ, and they're also going to be integrating with the Mahan stablecoin as well. So to see that one fail was a little bothersome to me personally, because I could see so many projects benefiting from free Oracle data, especially when it comes to the ADA price feed. We also
And
had
it's
Gene.
it's one of the just to sort of comment on the Charlie 3 one as well. Like it's one of the most common complaints for new projects wanting to build in space, for existing projects choosing their own centralized Oracle solution. In typically what you'll do is you'll just go to CoinGecko or something and look at the price feed there, and then provide your own Oracle feed, instead of using an existing decentralized, much more secure, well developed, good team backing it and delivering it. Instead of using a solution like that, a common complaint is because of the cost. Almost all of that is the operating cost, right? Just literally the cost of putting the UTXOs on chain and updating them every now and again, like the actual ADA cost for the transactions. That's the bulk of the cost, right? So making that free for everyone should be a no-brainer. Like, that would really drive integration. I think it would really drive, the actual decentralization, or sort of towards that direction for so many other projects. It's not just about, and Charlie 3, they're not taking a cent of that. Like the money that they applied for is literally just, transaction fees for their wallet. It's nothing else. So, nobody benefits from that except for the ecosystem, which is kind of wild that it's not getting voted through, in my opinion.
Wonderfully said. We got a question coming in from DD asking if proposals or proposers can reapply in the next funding round. And to
Yep.
confirm that, the answer is yes. And so I assume that we'll see, some of the same proposals that didn't get funding this round reapply for funding round number 11. But that actually raises another point that I had a thought about, right? So let's say a project wins as a part of funding round number 10. What do you guys think about them not being able to reapply for funding until they've delivered on their prior proposals for funding round number 10. So like they can't reapply in 11 or 12 until they're done building what they committed to using the prior funding rounds.
I'm indifferent about it. Like I like the idea of it because it definitely enforces accountability. It enforces like uh, the the focus on like things that you've submitted already, and it frees up a lot of space that you might be applying for that somebody else could get funding for. I think there are a lot of positives to that. I am probably like not totally on board with it just because I think that it encourages a lot of people to try and implement some kind of tactic to try and attain more funding, whether it be like submitting proposals under a proxy type of situation, or an anonymous identity, maybe as a possible way of doing things. I think that um, coming from I'm a very like code is law type of person. If people voted on an idea and they want to see that through, and the same people have another idea on the same round that also gets funded through, like yeah, I don't know, the whole concept of like not being allowed to do things, um, generally for me is like a, I always ask the question by who, like who is not allowing it and for what reasons and what rules. Um, I generally think that the community should just be let to do their own thing and implement more protocol level things in order to create a fair environment for people to thrive.
And
I couldn't agree more. And sorry to cut you off,
no, go
Fareed,
ahead.
but I do think that, again, there are sort of two sides to this. It's the technical side and it's the ethical side, right? And I do think that it's the responsibility of the community to hold these projects accountable. But it's also on the, literally on the shoulders of the Catalyst team to make the data available that is required for people to be able to hold them accountable. So, for example, there are, projects that have asked for fundings for, 30, 40, 50 proposals sort of over the course of time and delivered less than 10. And is that fair? Is it not? I don't know, but it's important to get this data into people's hands and have a discussion about it. And I don't think it's right to prevent people systematically from applying for consecutive funds, right? You may have great ideas, you may have different sub teams working on things, you may have whatever you don't want to prevent that kind of thing. But I do think that as an ecosystem and as a community, we should hold these projects accountable for their history, for their previous fundings and the deliverables and all of these things. Like that's where I do think that there is some work to be done, but I think it's more on the community sort of ethics side than on the programmatic sort of technical side of that issue in particular.
Yeah, I came up with this idea a few months ago, I think a little bit before Fund 10 came out. But I think it would be really interesting to see a sort of back end protocol where people can be paying attention to the progress reports that proposers are submitting. And in the event that they are not following through with what they're building, or they're producing dissatisfactory results, or they don't meet the benchmark, the people, the community that catches those proposals not living up to what they said they were going to build, they have the ability to report those proposals, and as a reward, if the review team determines that like funding needs to stop going to these proposals, then whoever reported would get back like 1 to 5% of the funds that have yet to be awarded. So there's a vested interest in the community catching proposals that are not following through on their promises. I think that would be fascinating and very effective.
Yeah, like a finder's fee, and like
Mhm.
imagine teams like Light Donation, like Cerberus, like these what is the Scat DAO, like
Yeah.
these projects that are like their whole job is to investigate and be critical and look at the facts. Imagine if they had an actual financial incentive to do this, and it sort of benefited everyone because they actually dig up this information that is relevant for all the participants in the same sort of same transaction. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you all for this awesome conversation. I didn't realize how much time has already flown by, and we didn't even get to any of the quiz questions. So I'm just going to quickly jump into those. I think this really goes to show, again, how big of an issue in a topic this is. And I think that this is just the beginning. We needed, literally, no pun intended, we needed a catalyst to get us talking about all of this information. So I'm happy to have started the conversation. Obviously, it's going to continue, on our live stream tomorrow with Paul from Cardano with Paul. I did see him jumping in here earlier. Paul, thank you for jumping in. We do appreciate it. If you guys aren't already following Paul, he was on the channel here, I believe, last week. And myself, Josh, and Pete from Learn Cardano will be on his channel tomorrow discussing, I believe, Catalyst as well as some other Cardano ecosystem updates as well. So make sure to tune in. And again, Paul, thanks for showing up. Again, there's a ton of comments coming in surrounding the Catalyst conversation right now. We got Lord um, basically giving us a little bit of kudos here. Good panel, good convo. Thank you as always, Lord. Didi echoing the same thing. Great stream. And Didi is correct. It is quiz time. So just go ahead and jump right in. We're going to go ahead and just take, I think, a total of 6 questions. We're going to just knock out 3 back to back. So the first is going to be surrounding DeFi. Now, Trim, I know you're an expert in this space. You're not allowed to answer. Neither are you, Josh. But you guys are more than welcome to potentially give the audience, excuse me, a few hints. So jumping into the first question, blank is an asset used as a guarantee for a financial service like a loan. And so DeFi protocols, for example, like Meld, use something like this. I know LQ also use something like this as well. Oh, we got Paul. I don't know if Paul, you're not allowed to answer either. So Paul did get this one right. We also got Eric Threadgill getting this one right. We've got Andre, and we've got Lord also getting this one right. So I I won't put up Paul. So this one I think will go over to Eric. So Eric, we'll give you that first one there. Moving along into the next one, we're going to be talking about market cycles. So a blank is where the price retreats to a lower level after significant upward price movement.
You should have this dun 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 music.
The Jeopardy music, I do
Yes,
need that.
Hosky. That's where the price retreats to a lower level.
It is not having. I do like Hosky. Great one there, Josh. It's not having. It's not a downtrend. It's not a drawdown. Not a dip. I'm surprised you guys are not able to get this one. I thought this one would have been an easier one. I'll give this one a couple more seconds. And while that is going, I'm also going to launch a poll, right, surrounding decentralization and just how we could potentially go forward with respect to Project Catalyst. So I want to ask another question while this is going. And that's going to be, what governance model would you guys like to see applied to Project Catalyst moving forward? A more decentralized approach, right, which is where the community puts up their proposals and everybody's able to vote, or a more centralized approach? And so I'm interested to see, would you guys maybe be up for like a committee or something like that, which is kind of appointed, right, sort of like D-reps that then actually has the duty and the expectation to research and actually provide their input as to who should get the funding for Project Catalyst. So that poll has officially kicked off. We'll jump back to that in a second here. I still don't see the right answer here for this particular question. So I will go ahead and actually give this one out. Josh or Trim, any guesses for this one?
Well, I know you were looking for correction, but I feel like Lord, when you said capitulation, that seems close enough.
Oh, actually, I just saw correction come in from Hank. So that was the right answer, was correction. That was a tougher one. I would have expected that one to have gotten answered relatively quickly. So we've got
Yeah.
Eric Threadgill and we've got Hank as well. Trim, did you want to add something there?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of names for this phenomenon, right? Like I would have accepted a retrace as well. That there's a lot of them.
That is true. That is true. All right, moving into the third one, then we're going to jump back into some of our topics. This is just going to be surrounding Cardano. The blank era encompasses the critical early steps in Cardano's journey to optimize decentralization.
This is one for the OGs.
Yeah. So Lord says, I suck at DeFi. Bring on the degen category. I will add a degen category just for you, Lord. It's not Byron. That's a good guess there, Eric. We'll give that one a couple of seconds. I
I'm
guess what
playing wrong answers only in the chat. Husky is always the wrong answer. It's the most wrong answer.
we've got
Husky is
Dord.
actually always the wrong answer.
We've got Dord. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Dord Popovich with Shelly. So that is correct. The Shelly era was
There
focusing.
were a couple. Well, was one
Mhm.
earlier one above the Husky.
Yeah, David hit Shelly.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I apologize. David is actually correct. So Dord, sorry for the mix up there. So far we've got Eric, Hank, and David. All right. We're going to keep things moving along and then we'll come back and knock out the last three questions. Josh and Trim, let me know how you guys are doing on time. If you do have to run, I completely understand. Again, I thank you both for joining me as a part of today's stream.
Yeah, I'm fine for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, I'm
All
free
right.
too.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to jump into some Cardano community events. And this was a pretty big award that was awarded to the Discover Cardano team, which attended, wrong slide there, which attended the Crypto Expo in Dubai. So they won the Best Crypto Community of the Year award there, which is a pretty big award. I know that Fox, I don't remember the full Twitter handle, but something Fox was the person actually running the booth. There was also Kaizen Crypto, David, or excuse me, not David, Patrick Tobler. And then if you guys can actually see there, it's a little bit blurry, but Daniel Friedman from the Zengate team was also helping them to man the booth. So a pretty cool announcement. What are you guys thinking about, this? Any thoughts about just the Cardano community being represented at some of these non-Cardano specific events?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love seeing these kinds of rewards, honestly. Like, yeah, let's put some life into this thing and bring attention to projects. Like it's a great way to, yeah, like get some new names because especially when you're at an event like this, there's just so many booths, right? There's so many things going on all the time. But having something like this that kind of brings attention to aspects of projects, it's fantastic. And like seeing Cardano represented is always a plus.
Josh, anything you want to add?
No, I think that captured it. I think that this is it's pretty cool to see. Like I think that that's an objective truth of the greater crypto community is that's the Cardano community is unbeatable in the space, and I think that that's demonstrated in a lot of ways. So it's cool to see that recognized.
Yeah, it is by far, I think, our strongest asset is the community. So moving into the next one here, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Cardano Summit, which will be taking place in Dubai, I believe on November 2nd through the 4th. So we've got a pretty interesting sponsor, which is going to be Axo. Now, they've been extremely quiet in the last couple of months, but for them to come out as a sponsor, I think might be a hint as to something that is coming up. So I did reach out to the team. I believe that we should be expecting some sort of announcement surrounding their product very soon. I'm not going to say more than that. I'm not sure what they want me to share or not. But I am interested in potentially sitting down with the Axo team at the Cardano Summit. Josh and Trim, are either of you going to be in attendance?
Virtually.
I will definitely try. I'm looking to. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to if I have to go out of pocket, but I will absolutely try to be there. I have something cooking that I'm hoping to have on display physically at location that people are going to be able to tune in sort of virtually to interact with as well. I'm not going to spoil too much now, but yeah, I'm really going to try to be there in Dubai. And at the local events the day after or the week after as well.
Josh, did you want to say something earlier?
No, I'm going to be there virtually. Like that's as much as it's halfway around the world for me. So It'll be steep for a while. You know, if ADA takes off one of these days, then like I'll be there in a heartbeat every year. But yeah, for now, I'm just going to be covering and gathering all the information that I can from a distance.
That's a fair point. And for anybody who's interested in attending, I believe there's a total of 50 different host cities, some of the biggest cities within the United States and just all around the globe that will have their own in-person events. I think the closest one to me here in the United States is going to be in Houston or like the Dallas area. But again, check the official website, which is available at summit.cardano.org. One last thing to add when it comes to the summit, they did release the agenda here. So if you guys are interested in looking at, who's going to be speaking and at which times, the a full agenda basically breaks that down there for you guys. So I did want to quickly just touch on that. And I think that's going to wrap it up there for the community event. So we're going to go ahead and just knock out these last 3 questions, and then we're going to jump into the very end here for today's live stream, which will be us touching very briefly on a pretty well-known content creator that's been having some trouble with his own YouTube channel here in the past month. So let me pull the quiz back up, and we are going to jump into question number 4. So this is going to be surrounding Cardano improvements. SIP blank is known as the datum metadata standard. Lord, with an interesting question. How is virtual access going to go this year? I know that the team that did the, oh my goodness, I can't think of their name anymore. It's not Virtua, but the team that recently did the Claymates Pride celebration, and then they also did the Farmers Market Future Fest. I think it's the Future Fest team. I think they're aiming to do a virtual participation this year. And I think they actually had a proposal out. I'm not sure exactly what that was surrounding, but I think they might be trying to do the virtual one this year. Josh with Sip Hosky. We've got
Run out of clever things to say.
And we've got, let's see, Token Jokin 1664. That is not it. We do have Dord Popovich with the redemption here, which is going to be SIP number 68. So, Dord, great job there. We've got you coming in at number 4. And so this is going to be surrounding scaling. I think this one should be a pretty quick one. Looks like Trim might be trying to get back online there. We'll give him a second to fix his visuals. But Blank is a research project whose goal is to provide stake-based threshold multi-sigs on top of the Cardano network. You're trolling us there, Trim.
I have no idea. My computer just really doesn't like StreamYard. I'm sorry, guys.
No problem. No problem. We've got Didi with the right answer with this one, and that is going to be Mithril. All right. Last but not least, we're going to jump into the final question surrounding trading. So blank in trading is the time it takes for an order to be executed once the order has been placed. And no, it's not Hosky, but good try, Josh. All right. And while that is going, I'm going to go ahead and just quickly end the poll here. And I'm seeing a result of the community in favor of continued decentralization. So it looks like the general populace, even with how Catalyst is going right now, would not like to have some sort of committee or group actually picking who should be voted as a part of Project Catalyst. All right, not getting any correct answers so far. I might have stumped the group today. All right, Josh, any thoughts on this one, Trim?
Gosh, what's the word?
It's not hash rate.
Settlement time?
I'll go ahead and give you guys this one. So this one is going to be latency.
Latency. Okay.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I can see that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Latency. All right. That's going to take us there through today's quiz. As far as winners, I've got Eric, Hank, David, Dord, and Didi. So I'll be spinning the wheel here in just a minute. Before I do that, do either of you maybe just mind recapping what you guys have noticed so far with BitBoy? If not, I can take the opportunity to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like
Sorry, my camera is just cutting out. So
um, it sounds to me like as his business as a YouTube channel has scaled and he's sort of fractionalized the ownership of everything, that there has been an overhaul of I guess a hostile takeover of the whole BitBoy crypto hit network business situation. It sounds to me like legally speaking, BitBoy does own a majority of it, somewhere in the ballpark of like 60%. So maybe there's some illegal stuff happening there. But yeah, BitBoy is in the process of suing his old team, I guess you say, for the hostile takeover of the Hit Network, which at what point was the biggest crypto YouTube channel in the space. So it's I don't know, it's moderately interesting to see what's going on and stuff, but I'm not paying super close attention to it.
Yeah, I haven't been keeping up with it. Obviously, there's been a lot of opinions and things like that, and he's a much bigger, person in the space. But I'm thinking about things just from a content creator's perspective, right? And I've been going back and forth with some people in email and just kind of getting my thoughts around it. For us, obviously, we're up and coming content creators, but there might be a day where we are to the scale where we need outside help. And this has really opened my eyes to how I go about doing that, and not getting taken advantage of. It was really eye opening for me to see somebody who put, hundreds of hours into building a channel that was then literally stripped away from him in a matter of an instant. And so, unfortunate situation. Hopefully, everything works out well on his end. Trim, any thoughts, about something like this with respect to BitBoy?
so I've seen some of the tweets. I honestly I haven't really been paying that much attention to BitBoy ever. He's not one of the influencers that I necessarily care that much about. I've known, that he's a part of the space, but yeah, like he's just someone who's in there, right? Um, I do think that it's a little bit weird. Like he did mention that his assets were seized or something. First of all, one of the core pillars of blockchain in general is self custody and diversification and decentralization. Like this shouldn't be a problem, especially for someone like him, right? Like you shouldn't be putting that much power into someone else's hand, basically. If he didn't, then maybe this is I don't even know what this is. Like I don't really understand how to relate to it. Like it's very strange to ask for donations. I think I've seen some comments that he got what is $200,000 donations in 24 hours, and meanwhile he had wasn't it Binance that basically came out and said that he had $675,000 on their exchange. It's a strange one. I think it's yeah, it's not something that I personally want to engage with at all, outside of the memes, obviously.
Yeah, I think you do a great job engaging with the memes there. Great artist, by the way. Kudos.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
yeah, I again, for me, it's been really eye opening to see somebody go from a place of such high power almost back to reality in a matter of a couple of days. Obviously, I don't wish anything like this ever on anybody. But again, I think from a content creator's perspective, it's really opened up my eyes as to how to try to at least navigate this space when it comes to, growing the channel. And it's really hard to grow on this platform just by yourself, right? I know Josh can probably relate from scripting the content, recording the content, creating the thumbnails, doing the marketing, putting out the tweets. All of these things take a lot of time. And so naturally, you do want to grow and you do want to involve other people in that mission to reach thousands and millions of people. But along the way, I think things get lost. And obviously, it's also the bear market. And so I'm not sure if that had anything to do with it, but I definitely wish him the best. It was good seeing him and other members of his team at the Rare Evo event, and hopefully he's able to get back on his feet ASAP. We're going to go ahead and roll the wheel here, and then we're going to go ahead and close out today's stream again. Shout out to Josh and Trim for joining us. So I'm going to go ahead and add this here, and we are just going to go ahead and spin. And keep in mind, whoever wins is either able to quickly join us for the actual stream, or you can pick a video topic for one of my next videos. So Eric Threadgill, huge supporter here on the channel. Feel free to go ahead and just let us know what your option is down in the comment section. And I do want to follow up on one of the last winners. So Lord actually had asked that I interview Gas, who's going to be running the Pudgy Cats project. And so I did interview him. I'll be releasing that very shortly. And then I believe there was Hockaday Hoosier, who actually won on the last stream, who's asked for a cornucopias video. So that is in the works. And so again, thank you all for joining me as a part of today's stream. Again, thank you to Josh and Trim as well. Eric, let us know exactly how you want to go. And while you're doing that, I just want to go ahead and just ask Josh and Trim for their closing thoughts. Generally speaking about Catalyst, Cardano, the ecosystem, crypto, what do you guys want to send us off with today?
I think that on the whole Catalyst situation, I think that what I might want to leave people off with is that, because it's very new and experimental, and there's a whole lot of ideas that people have about ways that we should change things. I don't want people to forget what it is that went wrong primarily in Fund 10. And it was major, huge wallets that were suppressing all other proposals with the mass downvoting. So I think that needs to be the focus of people's attention, of what things need to change for the next round, as what the primary thing that went wrong. So I think that should be at the forefront of everybody's mind, is that there can be lots of ideas tossed around and talked about of ways that we need to change things, but the voter suppression situation and tossing around your weight with large downvote power, that's the big thing that I think people should be paying attention to.
Well said. Trim, parting thoughts?
Yeah, I think we should. Ideally, I would see a collective push towards transparency and discussion. I think we're in a really good space. We have a lot of we're in a really deep bear market. It's a lovely ecosystem, and the people who are here now, all of them are great people, or most of them are great people, with the exception of Hosky, obviously. No, he's fantastic. But it's these times are where you should be looking around, seeing who's active, and finding out who's legit. Basically, I do think that Catalyst is a really good system. It needs some touch-ups for sure. But I wouldn't go as far as saying it's broken or anything like that. We should think forward, onwards and upwards, and as I mentioned, push towards openness and verifiability. These the availability of data and people following up on them will sort of allow the ecosystem to sort out a lot of these things. I don't think there's too much technically wrong. The downvote thing obviously needs a bit of a touch up, but yeah, it's overall, it's a good time to be in the space, because the people that you find now, come bull market, you're gonna it's gonna be a pleasure, absolute pleasure, to see these guys succeed. Because that they sort of stuck out when things were hard. So yeah, I think it's an interesting time, and I really appreciate everyone who's here at the moment. And also, I really want to apologize for the shenanigans, because my camera rugged. It happened once before, actually. I had to join from my phone, but for some reason my computer and my webcam just really doesn't like StreamYard. So I'll find out something for next time.
You should put in a Catalyst proposal for a new webcam.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's going to bring us to the end here for today's stream. Quick reminder there, I did see a comment coming in from Cardano MM. I will be streaming with Paul on his channel tomorrow. Again, just look for Cardano with Paul. Myself, Josh, and Pete from Learn Cardano will be there. So us four content creators will be chatting about everything going on in Cardano. And I'm sure we'll have an additional conversation surrounding Project Catalyst there as well. So feel free to tune in. I can't thank you all enough for sticking around through the entire show. It's been awesome. Josh and Trim, thank you as always for your awesome perspective and awesome insights. I look forward to having you guys on for future chats. As always, if you guys, the viewers, enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you guys could tap the like button. If it's your first time stopping by and you guys want more content like this surrounding the top builders in the Cardano ecosystem, consider subscribing. Also, check out Josh's channel, Late Game Crypto, if you have not. Trim, hopefully we'll have a channel soon, and I'll point you guys to this channel as well. But last
Yeah,
but
I
not least,
actually do have a channel. I have two whole videos up now.
okay, send me the
It's
link and go ahead.
yeah, it's not the regular content that I want to produce, but it's
Mhm.
some information about the stuff that I've been up to.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, send it over and I will definitely make sure to plug it in moving forward. And yeah, for anybody watching this as a part of the replay, if you have any questions, leave those down in the comment section below. And as always, we'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.